Hi everyone, my name's Ilana. I'm the Israel Ride Manager. Um, so yes, we're gonna record this call. So if you could just accept that prompt. And Aaron might have less than an hour with us, so we're going to have him speak first, and we'll do a Q&A afterwards. So if any questions come up for you during him speaking, you could put them on the chat, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So without further ado, I'll pass it to Howie, the Israel Ride founder and chair.
Welcome everybody. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. We're trying to put together a number of things that we can't be out there, or we missed going out there and riding together, but maybe we can virtually at least hang out together and create some support for everybody. We're lucky to have Aharon Ariel Lavi, who some of you may know because he was a tour guide for a couple of years for us, and who has a great story on his own and is doing some good work. So I'm going to let him talk and introduce himself a little bit more for those of you who haven't. He's not only a tour guide, but he's a rider. Introduce himself a little more, and then tell us a little bit about his experiences, because he was right there on the 7th of October, and has actually spent his life trying to, a lot of his work trying to prevent things like the 7th of October. So Aharon, he's in Miluim right now, but has taken some in the army now, but has taken some time, able to get time to talk to us.
Yeah, thank you, Howie. Can you hear me well, everybody? Okay. I'm currently at home. I got a 24 hours vacation from the army, but I'm going back there tomorrow. That's one of the reasons I'll have to be short, because this doesn't happen too often. But it was important for me to take this opportunity and really share our story, and also hear questions and concerns, and have a discussion with friends and partners. Great to see here Neil and Howie, and people I know and people I don't know. So I'll start with a brief introduction. I'll say a few words about myself and where I live and how I got here. Then I'll say a few words about our experience on October 7th, and my experience in Miluim since then. And then I'll try to zoom out and give you my take on the bigger picture of what's going on, which you may or may not accept, but I think this could be a good segue for discussion and questions that we can have later. Okay? So my name is Aharon Ariel Lavi. I'm 41 years old. Next week, actually, next Thursday, I think. I'm married to Liat. We have 5 kids. And by profession, I'm an economist, a rabbi. Just finished my PhD on Israel's political history, which relates to the judicial reform and everything that we had until October 7th. And officially, I'm doing right now my postdoc at Harvard. They agreed that I start online because I'm on Miluim, so I'm currently a postdoc student in Harvard online. Now, about 15 years ago, my family and two other families decided to move intentionally and purposefully to the Gaza envelope area. We went to the government. We asked them, where do we need young new families? I think we're still young, but back then we were even younger. And they told us, there's this place called Shuva on the Gaza border. It's not doing all that well. It could use some fresh blood. Why don't you go there and see what's going on? So we came here, we saw the place, we met the leaders of the Moshav, this village. It was some sort of a love at first sight, and we decided to join. And they really needed people. Just to give you a sense of the, as I said, I'm an economist, so I love telling stories through numbers. I think it helps understand things. I bought my plot of land, which is about 700 square meters. I'm sorry, I don't really know how much is that in hectares and feet, but it's a nice plot in Israeli terms. I bought it for 66,000 shekels 15 years ago, which is the price of a second-hand car. It's ridiculous. The last plot that sold just across the street from my house, maybe 6 months ago, sold for 1.5 million shekels. The same kind of land, the same area, the same place. So in economic terms, I made like I don't know, like a 1600% ROI. But that wasn't the purpose. That's not the reason we came here. I'm just using this to tell you the story of how this small community of 3 families in the beginning was able to revitalize this moshav, this village, from a place that nobody wanted to come to, and they just gave land virtually for free, to a place that has a waiting list, and you can see it in the numbers, in the prices. So we came here 3 families, then we became 7. Then during the first year, we became 21 with another 100 families on the waiting list. So we opened another community in a moshav nearby called Yoshivia, and then another one. And I've been dealing with community building ever since. Right now, I'm running a project called Hakel, which is part of Adama, which used to be a partner at the ride until last year. Hakel is a network of such communities globally. So we took the idea of a small intentional community from Israel and expanded globally. But that's a whole different story, just giving you the headline. So we continue to grow here in Shuva. Now we have 64 families, about 250, 300 kids. And I would say that our influence on the area went beyond just living in this small moshav. We opened new kindergartens. We took a school that was about to shut down, and now it's building new classes because there are too many kids. We build the entire informal education array in the area, and we try to do whatever we can to make this place a better place. Now that's one side of the story. The other side relates to Gaza itself, and then I'll get to October 7th. So one of the events, and this relates also to bike riding, and I think you as bike riders, fellow bike riders, might find this relevant. But just as a footnote, this area is one of the best areas in Israel to bike, both mountain biking and both off-road and on-road. I'm a mountain biker myself for the last, actually since I got here, because that was my incentive to get into this. I became a biking instructor, a professional and certified trail builder. So I'm in this business for quite a while, mostly mountain biking, but also do some road. And when we got here, so after a few years, in 2019 or so, we somehow got connected to people inside Gaza, led by a woman. I'm allowed to say her name because she's public. Her name is Manar, but she had a whole group back then called the Gaza Youth Committee. We got in touch with them, obviously only online, and their purpose was to promote some sort of reconciliation, peace, normalization with Israel. Not on a political sense, as on a people-to-people basis, on a people-to-people level. So we got connected. I told them that what I love is biking. They said, great, that's what we love as well. Let's do a bike ride. And we did it in June 2019. Obviously not together. Again, they did the bike ride on their side, on the beach, which is much more beautiful and more comfortable in June. We did it on our side, which was crazy hot, but it was still a great event. I think we had about 200 people on the Israeli side, about 70 to 100 on the Gaza side. It was on national TV. It was a big event. It was very publicized. And then after 2 weeks, Hamas arrested Manar and our friends, blaming them in treason or talking to the enemy, which under Hamas regime, the penalty is death. It's not just you don't get a fine. You get executed. They spent some time in jail. I can't tell exactly how, but through some connections we have with Hamas, through some rabbis who work with religious leaders of Hamas, we were able to get them out, and they were released. And then in 2020, after COVID started, they did a Zoom call with Israelis and got arrested again. We got them out again, which was very tough. And then our connections told us, guys, that's it. That's the last time. If they do it again, it's on them. There's no way we can get them out a third time. So we told them, guys, we're not going to do anything with you again. It's too dangerous for you. It's great for us, but it's too dangerous for you. We're not going to take this risk. We won't be responsible if something, we don't want to be responsible if anything happens to you. And we told them that the best advice we can give them is just to leave Gaza and find some other, and some of them left, some of them stayed. Manar is now in Dubai, and we do some work together. But I'm giving this as an example that I experienced firsthand. I lived through this experience. Just to exemplify that the real problem in this area, both for us and the Palestinians, is Hamas. Hamas, and I've been saying this for years. Everybody who heard me speak at the bike rides, have heard this story, have heard this message. I didn't come to this only after October 7th. That's what we've been saying for years. And I have to say that almost nobody listened because it was too comfortable for everybody to keep Hamas at what they thought to keep them at some controllable level. And leaders on both sides and global leaders thought that this is the best solution, and let's just keep it from one round to another of bombs and missiles and all that. And then came October 7th. Now, just to give you an example of how ignorant we, and I say we including me, we were regarding Hamas capabilities and intentions. After a not protective edge, Guardian of the Walls, Shomer HaChamot, which was 2 years ago, because there was a lot of mess in Israel, I decided that I would apply for a gun for myself. In Israel, you cannot buy a real gun. You cannot buy machine guns. You can only buy small pistols with 10 bullets, and you have to go through screening and a doctor and training. You don't just buy a gun in the store. It's very supervised. But I decided I want to have a gun to feel more safe. But my idea was that I will never have to use it in my area. It's just when I go to Jerusalem, when I go to Tel Aviv. In my area, we have missiles, but no one can cross the fence. I mean, it was inconceivable that someone can actually cross the fence and come to my house, and I will have to protect myself with a gun. That's not in this area. In this area, you have a bomb shelter for missiles. And it took me a while. Never mind. I got the gun on Sukkot, on the first day of Sukkot this year, literally like 6 days before October 7th. I got my gun, and then came Simchat Torah, which is both Shabbat and a holiday. And as a rabbi, I started asking myself if it's okay to carry the gun with me on Shabbat if I don't have to, because again, I believe that no one is going to cross the fence ever, and why should I carry a gun on Shabbat if I don't have to? It's not Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or those areas. This area is safe. I decided to take it with me just in case, but I had this question inside me, halachically, like, should I take it or not? In my moshav, we have this nice minhag that we do the hakafot early in the morning at 5 a.m., which is very nice. So I did get to do the hakafot on this Simchat Torah because we do it early in the morning. We did the hakafot, then we daven at sunrise, which was 6:28, and exactly like 5 seconds before we start the Amidah, exactly on sunrise, which was 6:28, 6:29, exactly then we started hearing the missiles. In my area, you hear the missiles, you hear the Iron Dome go out before you hear the alarm. Only then the alarm sounds. We said, okay, missiles, we're used to that, rockets, never mind. I went home pretty calm and easy, just to see that the kids are okay in the bomb shelter. And after an hour or two, don't catch me, times, the timeline gets a bit, messy in my head. But about an hour or two later, we started hearing gunshots. Now that's something you do not hear in this area. As I said, gunshots you hear in other places in Israel. In my area, you only hear rockets and Iron Domes and sirens. And I still couldn't believe it. I said, maybe that's a new type of Iron Dome. Maybe that's a new kind of, there's no way there are gunshots in this area. But, I've been in the IDF for long enough to identify gunshots. So I had to agree, to admit that these are gunshots. So we opened our cell phones just to see what's going on with the emergency squad. We didn't open the news, again, because it's Shabbat, so we didn't know exactly what's going on. And we started, so we had about 6 to 7 people with guns, again, small pistols with 10 bullets, not real guns. And we started just guarding the moshav around the fence. We had no connection with the army. The army was completely disconnected, which was worrying, but we still didn't know. Again, I said this even shamefully to some extent. Looking back and knowing what really happened during that time, I'm saying it was crazy that we were so relaxed. but we didn't know it in real time. We had no idea what was going on. One of the people in the Moshav who did watch the news came to me and said, he's one of those guys who are, he's to some extent mentally challenged. We love him, but, and then he came and told us, you know, I heard that Be'eri was taken over and the military base and Kfar Aza. These are nearby villages. And we said, no way. I mean, we said maybe you're under stress, maybe you're not reading right, you're not interpreting right what you saw. Again, it was inconceivable. It was impossible to believe that something like this could happen. Now, luckily, our Moshav was spared. It was not infiltrated on October 7th. Back then, we didn't know why. Now we know the real story. Exactly at 11:39, we have the recording in the WhatsApp group. At 11:39, we saw two helicopters, big helicopters, Sikorsky, you know, the Yasurim of the military, of the IDF, just fly above us and land about a kilometer to the west of us. And then only one came back. And then we heard a huge fight with gunshots, and there was a huge fight about a kilometer west of the Moshav. What we know happened, again, because we investigated this later, is that the pilots were very creative. They just somehow learned that there's a whole battalion of the Tzanchanim, or the parachuters, in a place next to Jerusalem. They went there of their own initiative, took 50 fighters on each helicopter and came to our area, and they stopped the Hamas from coming to Shuva. That's there was a huge Hamas brigade on its road to Shuva, Zimrat, Kfar Maimon. We're like the second line. We're the 5 to 6 kilometers line from the Gaza border. But again, we didn't understand at that point the miracle we had. We just didn't know all the details. About an hour later, I was called out to the main road of the Moshav. I'm a combat medic. I forgot to mention that. And they needed medics because the wounded started to pour out from Nachal Oz, from Be'eri. And since our Moshav was not attacked, it was considered a safe zone, again, relatively safe. So they decided that it's called Ta'agan in Hebrew, like the place where you collect all the wounded and do the triage and actually decide who gets evacuated in what way, would be in the entrance to our Moshav. So they called me out. I took 2 other doctors we have in my community. We have a nurse. My neighbor's dad was here. He's also a doctor. I just picked up all of them. I took all the military equipment I collected over the years on Miluim, all the medical equipment, and brought it there. And you know, I've been a medic since 2003 or 4, like 20 years now. I've never seen so many wounded soldiers and civilians, definitely not in such a short manner of time as I saw on that Shabbat. All kinds of wounds, also casualties. I don't think the IDF had this amount of wounded people in since Yom Kippur. So it's like the 1973. And that's when I started to realize what was going on. Started to get information from the soldiers there. During while I was treating the wounded, I got a call from my unit that I need to come to the north for Miluim. I told them I can't leave right now. We have wounded people. The area is not safe. I can't get in a car and just go. I waited till Shabbat ended. On Motzei Shabbat, I went to my unit, and I've been there now for 45 days. We've been doing all kinds of missions, primarily in the north, protecting iron domes. Now we're protecting one of the bunkers, the main strategic facilities of the army in the north. Some training. So that's where we stand right now. The community has been evacuated to the desert, to the Arava actually. Moa, it's a place next to Tzafar. Maybe the bikers here know it. I think the ride was supposed to go through that this year, or I'm not sure. Maybe with a new trail. Some went to Almog, Kibbutz Almog, which is next to the Dead Sea. And that's the situation right now. Maybe I'll take a pause and let's just see if people have any questions, comments, because I've been talking for quite a while. And then I'll say a few words about the larger landscape. But let's just take a pause here, maybe. Even just with show of hands, like, are you with me? Are you following?
You said 2 helicopters you heard two and then one came back. I thought there was a story about a helicopter that was shot
Oh,
down.
yeah. Sorry, I forgot that part of the story. Again, the details get mixed. Again, we saw one coming back, and we had no idea why. Now we know that the other one was shot by an RPG. Luckily, the pilot was able to land before everybody landed safely, and but the helicopter then they got out, and the helicopter burned, and it's still there. Like you cannot because it's a closed military zone. But basically, if you go there, you'll see the remnants of the helicopter still there. But again, we know this only looking back. We didn't know that in real time. Yeah, David.
What's the name of your Mossad? What pump?
Shuva, SHUVA.
That's what I thought. I
Next
couldn't
to-
find it. I couldn't find it on the map. I was looking for it. I thought you said I have a family. It's Di Nitzan, which should be in your neighborhood. I thought.
It's in the area, but the real neighborhood is Saad, Alumim, Be'eri,
Saad.
Kfar
Okay.
Aza,
Yeah.
Nachalos. That's the
Oh,
area.
further north. Okay.
Yeah. Shuva is a very small place. Nobody really knows it. It's okay. Everybody asks me, "Oh, where is Shuva? Like, who lives there?" Yeah. So it's
Like nobody knows what
It's a
kibbutz
small-
Chepziba is. They know about the Gagal Masalot. We're not in kibbutz.
yeah. So yeah, you understand the feeling. Okay, let's take maybe one more question, and then I'll continue. Neil, you want to ask something?
And I'll wait.
Okay. Okay, so let me continue. So that's basically the story of like my personal story and the story of my community and where we stand. Now, I do want to take a few minutes to talk about the larger picture, because besides running a KEL, I'm also running an organization called the Ottawa Interfaith Center, which is part of Ottawa Stone, which I assume some of you have heard of, the organization established by Rabbi Shlomo Riskin some 40 years ago. And basically, it's what we're trying to do at the Ottawa Interfaith Center is to make religion part of the solution to global problems and to the local problems in Israel, instead of religion being part of the problem. Now, I'll get back to this in a minute. I just want to give you a better sense of what actually went on October 7th. What actually blew up on that day, besides the details in my story and helicopters and all that. The name that Hamas gave to their military operation, or to their terrorist attack, that's a more accurate term, is Tufan al-Aqsa. Now, Tufan in Arabic and also in Aramaic, by the way, Tufan means the flood, and it refers to the biblical flood, because the flood is mentioned in the Quran as well. It's not, but in general, the Quran refers a lot to the Bible and to the Jewish narrative. And Al-Aqsa is Al-Aqsa, that's the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that they purposefully gave a religious name or religious title to this war, to this attack, and it's not for naught. The way we see it, with the Interfaith Center and other people we work with, also Muslim leaders, by the way, and again, we've been saying this for years. It's not something that we realized only after October 7th. What Hamas and actually Iran and Hezbollah are trying to do, because without Iran there won't be a Hamas. All the funding, all the weapons come from Iran. What they're trying to do is to take a local conflict that has religious aspects and metamorphose it or transform it into a global religious world war that has a local front which they manage. Okay, that's a key point. So I'll just repeat it. They're trying to take a local conflict with religious aspects and turn it into a religious world war with a local front that they manage. And the idea behind it is to expand Iran's dominance and control of the area. It has very little to do with the Palestinians. They could not care less about the Palestinians. Iran doesn't care at all about Palestinian lives or Palestinian well-being. I care about the Palestinians much more than they do. Hezbollah doesn't care about the Palestinians. Hamas doesn't care about the Palestinians. it's not about liberating Palestine or some reconciliation in this area or freedom or independence. That's not the story. The story is a religious war that's and its purpose is to expand Iran's control in the Middle East and expand its interests as part of a larger theological scheme that they have. That's the real story. And that's why it cannot be solved by any territorial compromise. There's no bargain that Hamas will accept, except for the annihilation of Israel as part of taking over the Middle East. That's the only goal that they will. That's the only price that they will be willing to, or the only payment that they will be willing to accept, and that's a price that we, Israel, and I assume we, the Jewish people, and I dare to say we, the Western world, are not willing to pay, because if Israel falls, it won't fall. But just as a figure of speech, if it falls, then the West will be next. It's not going to stop here. It's again, the vision is much bigger than just solving the Palestinian conflict. Now, what can be done in the face of such evil and strategy? What we're trying to do, well, we do many things, but as I said, we have connections with Muslim leaders all over the world, and many of them are very supportive of Israel, even more than I expected. The problem is that most of them won't speak out publicly. They're afraid they could get. I mean, in Israel, if you say something which is not popular, or in America, so you'll get bashed on Twitter, or you might even lose your job, maybe in some extreme scenarios. In the countries that we work with, I don't want to say the names, okay, but countries, some of them have relations with Israel, some of them do not. You could get killed if you speak out publicly. You could just get murdered. So we respect their privacy and safety, and we do not share their names. But more and more of them are speaking publicly. And what we realized is that this is one of the main fronts we need to be at. We need to harness the moderate Muslim world and make sure it understands the real conflict, that Hamas and Iran and Hezbollah is their problem, even more than it's Israel's problem. By the way, 95% of the people murdered by Hamas and Hezbollah in Iran are Muslims, not Jews or Christians or Americans. They murder Muslims more than they murder anyone else, and oppress them and all other things. And that's not for well, I can't say it's not for publication because it's been recorded. But I can just say that what we do, I can send details later if you want on the exact project that we do and how we do it, how we collect the materials, how we create more materials, how we harness Muslim leaders to speak out. Some of them speak anonymously because it's too dangerous for them. And I can say that overall, over the last month, we got over 800,000, almost 1 million views of our materials, over 500,000 engagements. Many of them are negative engagements, but it doesn't matter. On social media, engagements give you more exposure. And I can't say that we're pushing the needle ourselves, but I do dare to say that it's a crucial front to be at, and it's being overlooked by most people. Most government ministries, Jewish funders, Jewish organizations focus on donations to the IDF, donations to Gaza. Some of them are very important, of course. The amazing march in Washington last week. But I'll conclude with this and then open for questions. Since this war is based on religion, whether we like it or not, that's how Hamas and Iran and Hezbollah sees it. And they call the shots because they started this. Since they see this as a religious war, and religion here is part of the problem, we must find ways to make religion part of the solution and harness the moderate religious forces in Islam to counterbalance Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah and this entire axis to hopefully not just win this war physically, but also have some better future for all of us. So let's take a pause here, and yeah, Neil, let's start with you and then see.
I have two related questions given your proximity to Gaza. Obviously, without revealing any information that shouldn't be revealed publicly, how do you see the kind of the arc of the operation going, and what does the post period, what's the best case scenario in your view for the post period? After the, you know, I don't even know what the post period looks like, so I don't even know how to frame the question, but I'm wondering, you know, where we are in this operation, and what you see as the possible reconstruction following it.
Well, that's the first question is easier. The second one is very complex. In terms of the operation, again, without revealing any secret details, I can just tell you that what the IDF is doing over the last 45 has been doing and still doing over the last 45 days inside Gaza has never been done before. It's a few leagues beyond anything that was done in the past. They are very serious. You know, we have an amount of hostages which is bizarre. Nobody imagined anything like that. We have an amount of casualties which is unbelievable, and the response to, at least according to this date, is very severe and serious and strategic. So they really go from one place to another, taking down one Hamas symbol or infrastructure after the other. What's going to happen in the aftermath? First of all, it depends on how it ends. Is Hamas really going to be annihilated or not, and to what extent? That's a very big question. I have to say that I don't have a very good answer to that. I've been talking to people from the Gaza envelope area over the last week, trying to think of ideas, just trying to think like what's our public message as residents of the area, like what's our, and I can say what's out of the question, and then I can tell you like what's the spectrum of what's being debated. On the one hand, something that nobody in the Gaza envelope is going to accept is to end this war like the previous operations ended, with the Hamas existing and just waiting for the next round. That's not feasible. Nobody will accept that. If the government stops now or before it's finished, they're going to see a wave of demonstrations and public unrest that what we saw over the last year was going to be a playground compared to what's going to happen. People will explode. There's no way that we're going to accept that on the one hand. On the other hand, I don't know if you heard, but one of the ministers in Israel suggested, and then he took it back, but he said that dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza is an option. That's the other thing which is out of the question, and nobody here is willing to accept. Not as a metaphor, not as a, I mean, obviously dropping a nuke on Gaza is stupid because the fallout will come on us, but not because of the technical details, but because it's not something that Israel can do or wants to do. Now, in the legitimate spectrum, in there, I would say the options range from civilian control by the Palestinians and military control by Israel, similar to what we have in Judea and Samaria. So the IDF can go every night and arrest people if they're just, just catch it when it's small and not let it grow into something bigger. Other options could be some sort of international forces controlling the place. Other options, people are talking about reestablishing Jewish settlements in the area. I don't think it's a good idea, but it is being discussed at the moment as an option. I think the cost in human lives and financially and international legitimacy and all that is too high. And another thing, and I know people don't like to hear that, and I wish this wasn't the reality, but the Gaza Strip is not sustainable. There is no way this small piece of land can sustain 2 million people economically, unless it becomes like Singapore, and that's not very likely. The gap between Gaza and the modern economy is too big. It's not going to work. There are two things that could work. One is to enable people to migrate to other countries in a peaceful and respectful way, not to banish anyone or to transfer anyone, but to No, it has happened in other places in the world when they become unsustainable and then other countries absorb them. The other model can be the Jordanian model, which means that not only Jordan, but other countries, what they do is that because their economy, their infrastructure cannot support itself, what they do, they send young people abroad to work in Germany, to work in the Emirates, to work in Saudi Arabia. I'm talking about educated people, not people with academic degrees, but they can't get a job in Gaza, so they go to work in other places. They send money back home to their parents because the family structure is very strong in Gaza. It's a very traditional society, so it's something they can work for the long term. And and this money that comes from the outside, that's what drives the economy, actually. And also it gives people other things to do and less manpower available or human power available for Hamas to recruit. I would say these are the options on the table. I have, as I said, I have some reservations from some of them. I don't think I don't have a solution for this. I don't think anyone. It's a very complex problem. I don't think there is any ready-made solution. And if someone tells you that he has a solution, then he's either ignorant or lying, because there's no magical solution
Thank
for
you.
this.
Do you think a
Yeah.
Marshall Plan approach from the US and the UE, because Israel doesn't quite have those resources to actually rebuild and create a viable economy in both the West Bank and Gaza, could be accomplished?
Actually, that's a good idea. I haven't thought about that. If it could be accomplished or not, I would say it has good chances to be accomplished, but this area is crazy. And there will be people who would like, again, going back to what I opened with, improving the economic situation in Gaza and Judea and Samaria. You need to understand that it goes against the interest of Hamas and Iran. Okay, it may sound crazy because they tell the world that they represent the Palestinian cause and they want to help no, they don't care about the Palestinians. They use them as a tool.
That makes it analogous to the Marshall Plan, which was done to thwart the expansion of the Soviets.
This house.
Right. So maybe it could work, but okay, only. So there's a background. Is that a question or? Anyway, I'll just finish this sentence. It can work only if the US, the UN, the EU, and the UAE, and all those other organizations in Saudi Arabia, organizations with a lot of money and resources, and with a lot of international influence and gravitas and position and power, only if they will be very serious about it. If it's going to be another one of those small short-term programs that they throw like another $100-200 million, which for them is nothing, just to feel good, and then it's going to be just another disappointment. If they will be serious and strategic and take it for we're talking about a process of 20 to 30 years. That's what it's going to take. You need to remake the Palestinian education system, remove all the anti-Semitic and radical content from there. You need to rebuild the economy. You need to invest in human capital. There's a lot to do. It could work if people in the U.S. government who are willing to talk about it, listen and think about it. Be more creative than their usual ideas of, let's bring the Palestinian Authority, which is corrupt and useless, and it also doesn't care about the Palestinians. In the long list of people who do not care about them, their own authority doesn't care about them as well, because it's totally corrupt. They're just taking money for themselves and their kids. They're not gonna do anything good with that. I don't know if there are people to talk to. That's I can try and harness support from people in the Gaza envelope and actually, try to put it on the table as another option.
I have a question. Aharon.
Yeah.
Hi. First, thank you for sharing all that went on. I know how intense it was, but just so impressed and sending love over from here and thankful that you and your family are safe. I was just wondering if you could speak to how things are going at the Arava Institute in Keturah. Have you been there and recently? And if you can share on, because what goes on in the success of that is what you were describing of right now in terms of, the solution. We have it in my eyes of what goes on at the Arava. Can you share how they've been responding to what's been going on since October 7th?
I'm not so involved with the Arava Institute. I mean, my family is in the Arava right now as refugees. I think I saw the question on the chat, but the Arava is very big in Israeli terms. Okay, it's 2 hours drive from one end to another. The Arava Institute is about another hour south of where my family is, but I'm sure Howie can speak more to that and tell you more, or anyone here from the Arava Institute can tell more about that. I don't want to speak for them because I don't really know the details. I'm stationed in the north, as I said, and I can't tell you exactly what's going on there, but things are going on there as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, maybe let's take another question or two.
Yeah,
We got
this
two
is
Neils. Go ahead, Gordon. Neil, Gordon, go.
Thank you, and Aharon, thank you for doing this, and good to see you under these circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't know in some ways how to ask this question in a cogent sense, but the way you describe the underlying issues and a much bigger issue, obviously, than what's going on in the region. One thing that's very concerning, I think, to all of us here outside of Israel is the sentiment that we deal with, and it's not just the rise of anti-Semitism or re-rise, but somehow the younger generation here and all over the world has a very distorted view of what the issues are. And it's very easy to fall prey to wanting a better life for the Palestinians, and obviously everyone does, but not understanding what the root cause is very concerning. And I don't know what people feel like, or yourself, or in Israel in general. How do we educate in the world in some ways, but especially the younger generation, as to where they should be putting their efforts, or what the root cause of the problem is?
Well, that's a very big question, because you're talking about an effort, with tons of universities and students and professors. Most of them are ignorant. They know nothing about the history of this place. They don't read Hebrew or Arabic or Persian. They have no idea what's going on. They think they know because they teach at Harvard or Princeton or whatever, but they're really ignorant. And it's embarrassing sometimes to hear them. I mean, embarrassing intellectually. I say this as a PhD and a postdoc student. It's really embarrassing to be professors who are so ignorant. I would say, yes, we need to do work on campuses and open more and more Israel centers in academic universities and all that. But our best bet, I think, is not to have us explain this, but to have the Muslims explain this, and that's what we're trying to do. When Muslims speak against Hamas and against Iran, it's much more powerful than when I do it or you do it or anyone else. Because it's more authentic. We live in identity politics atmosphere, and it matters a lot who speaks and not only what they say. And so me as a religious white Jewish male have less, I would say, authenticity or legitimacy, whatever, to say this. But Manar, for example, who is a Palestinian Arab woman, when she says that, that's much more powerful, and that's why we create those partnerships, and we need to get the word out there, and I think that's, and we create also connections with Muslim universities and other Muslim partners. I would say that's one of our best bets, to actually harness the moderate Muslim academic world to do it not for us, it's for them, and when they say it, it will be much more difficult for people who are ignorant about Islam to say, oh, that's not Islam, or that's not what Palestinians really want, because they will tell you what they really want. So I think that's a voice we need to amplify, do it very gently, very, we can't, put our logo there, but we need to walk those people and help them help themselves and help us, because it's a confluence of interest.
Let me
This
add
is
one
one.
thing about that, Aaron.
Yeah.
When Minar speaks, I can tell you that she's speaking on the basis of conversations that she's having with Bedouin, Israeli, and Gazan and Palestinian mothers and women. So not only does she speak as a Palestinian, but with authenticity, but she actually speaks with information. And
Right.
the information she has and others like her have is very, very powerful, because it's specific. It's very specific.
Yeah, right. It's specific, it's authentic, it's undeniable, and people need to hear that. And that's what we're trying to do. With our efforts and resources, we try to get this word out. This work is endless, and any partnership or amplification of it is more than welcome.
Ron, I wanna thank you very much for your time. I know you're with your family and you said you had to limit your time. I think this has been very valuable. And thanks for being with us. I will take a couple of minutes to talk about what's going on at the Arava Institute for everyone, but I wanted to let you go be with your family, and thank you for bringing your perspective. And we all look forward to being in a situation where we can ride with you next October, right close to your home. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Howie. Thank you all for coming today, for the questions and interest. And hopefully next year we'll also have a mountain biking trail in the Israel ride. Okay, thank you. Howie, I'm going to put my email on the chat if you want to keep in touch and ask more questions, and I'll try to respond in due course.
Yeah, we'll send that. We'll send it out to everybody together with a recording of this, which we're making. So
Okay.
Somebody about the Arava Institute and what it's doing today. The Arava Institute continues to function. The students are there. They are active. They are studying. We've done Tariq Abu Hamid, who's the leader of the Arava Institute, has done a couple of webinars, which we will send out to everybody, the link to them, to talk about that in more detail. I think it's obvious to everyone here that the mission of the Arava Institute is more important now than ever. The ability to create trust amongst people on both sides, and to create dialogue, which is just so missing from everything that we do, and certainly just makes it more important for the Institute to exist and have funding and continue to grow. I urge you also, if you, David Lair, the former director, has been writing a lot in the Times of Israel. If you don't follow that, it's a free English newspaper coming out of Israel online. He has a number of blogs there, which are also talking about the connections and the activity that the Institute still has with its partners and organizations in Gaza through this difficult time.